Welcome back, everybody, to the Triple DCCD Radio Hour Philosophy Club. We're meeting here at Northlake College. Welcome back, guys. Never mind. Sorry.
We're an American band.
Triple DCCD was what you said?
Triple DCCD, man. I know.
Triple CD.
I know my college. I know where I am.
You're listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show, the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, are our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 4 months. We are back. Season 5.
Season 5.
Get excited. Hallelujah. Holy lady with a baby.
Holly Berry.
We're back.
Hallelujah.
This is going to be the season where Manzi gets discovered and moves
Yes,
to Hollywood.
this is my breakout season, breakthrough season. There's going to be an advertisement playing soon.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, something on the food pantry. I'll say this: the materials here, the technology at KDUX Studios, has got a bit of an upgrade. We got I demanded an HD camera to show my beautiful face in HD, and we got it. I demanded better guests. That didn't really happen, but hey, we're gonna give it a shot anyway. So yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. Philosophy Club had its first meeting of the academic year. The whole semester, and I try to tell my students this, academics, your professors, they don't judge years by calendar years. They judge years by academic years. So the first day of the fall semester, it's like New Year's Day. It really is.
Does it feel like it?
It certainly does not. No, it does. It really does. I'm so happy.
Do you get drunk the first day of every fall semester?
First and every day. No. I get drunk off of knowledge. I get drunk off of power.
Okay.
We're happy to be here, guys. Let's do what we like to do and begin with introductions, which are always sincere. We'll start at the far end with who is it?
Hello, I'm new this semester. I'm the new president for the Philosophy Club. My name is Kirabo Ebebe.
You're nude? Oh, you're nude.
Don't ever talk to me like that again. Okay, I'll cut your mic off right now.
Trigger.
I'm the president, the emperor. I'm not here for a democracy. I'm here for a dictatorship.
Speaking of drunk off power. Well, Kai, I've heard a lot about you, all negative, but maybe you can prove me wrong. Who do we got there to your right?
My name's Braden, and I just want to say Kai is the worst.
Don't I know
The
it?
diss track.
Well, my name is JC. That's my stage name.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, welcome.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
He is a superstar.
This is my
He is risen.
first
He's woke.
first time at the KDUX web radio show.
Welcome.
So
Yeah, welcome.
it's kind of new. It's kind of weird.
And don't get... He's like, it's kind of not at all what I was hoping for or expecting.
It is. I've always wanted to be part of a podcast.
Oh, good.
It's always been kind of like a thing of mine. I wanted to start my own podcast, and
That's cool. And,
so
depending on
kinda
how you
like,
do...
it's kind of weird because we're talking to each other, but it's being aired to like two people. So
Joe Rogan
Maybe you can.
experience.
Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, you can get to go to Hollywood with Manzi when you get discovered.
Well, I wouldn't say we've actually invited you to be on the podcast, but hey, you're here. No, I'm joking. Let me ask you something, Joe. Was that your first Philosophy Club meeting yesterday?
Yeah.
Is this your first semester, Richland?
No, this is my second semester.
Oh,
but
okay,
it's
cool.
My
Yeah.
first. No, actually, not my second semester. Sorry. My second year is my
Okay.
third semester. But
Cool.
it's the first time I actually joined the club. So.
Oh, okay,
You
great.
joined the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It feels
exactly.
like it, actually. Yeah.
I hope so. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Hopefully your enthusiasm won't wane as the semester drags on.
I mean, no, it won't. I actually skipped class to join the first meeting.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
I mean,
well,
I don't.
I can't endorse that.
I don't. Yeah, don't endorse it. It's not a good thing. It was pre-cal.
He's more.
Freak out, damn,
He's more
man.
devoted than me already.
I
I go to class and miss the meetings.
Yeah.
Yes, well, we know who's an ardent member of the Philosophy Club and who is a Fairweather Philosophy Club fan.
Fair weather, man. Come on, Brady.
Featherweather. Thunderducks.
Featherweight.
And who am I? Oh, yes, I'm the faculty advisor, Professor
right?
Kalen Scoggins. No, I'm Professor Manzi. I'm the club advisor here. Guys, I mean, should we just get right into it? Should we do plugs first, save plugs till the end?
We should save the plugs till the end.
Yeah, okay, I think that sounds right, because this is season 5, and we still don't have a real system for how we do things. It's very free form, as they say. Well, I guess we can get into it. Yesterday's first meeting, a smashing success, I would say. We had 32, 33 people show up
Good amount.
for the first meeting. Yeah, typically our first meetings are like 12. It's the club officers and like a couple of the random friends, but this was pretty good. Pretty happy with how it started out. The topic, I suppose, if we had to sum it up, was vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say?
Vulnerability versus suspicion.
Yeah, versus suspicion versus guardedness. I think we had a lot of different perspectives presented there. I loved what everybody was saying, except for Brian Miranda. No, shut up, Brian.
Shout out Brian, a classic.
Yeah, an OG Thunderduck. He's currently at El Centro, and he still comes for the Philosophy Club meetings. Not too shabby. He's like a second Mario.
He is the second Mario.
He's Luigi.
He's Luigi. That's hilarious. He's better than Luigi, man. Luigi never gets a good break.
Hey, Luigi was always my favorite.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
that says about you. That says something.
It does. That's a good point. I always liked the sidekicks. I was always a fan of Launchpad McQuack instead of Darkwing Duck.
Okay.
I liked Robin instead of Batman.
I don't know. I don't get that reference. No.
What? Oh. Well, that'll do it for the radio show. We're gonna go watch Darkwing Duck. Any big points stand out to you? Any place you want to start?
Well, okay.
It's the requack. By the way, let me tell Joe, JC. By the way, the requack is when we recap, like Thunderducks do, the meeting. We call it a requack.
Let's lay out the question. So the question was, which life preserves, or which method would preserve life better? A vulnerable life or a suspicious life? So that was the question, and I guess the two sides of it are, one is, would you live a higher quality life and a longer life if you put yourself out on more limbs and were willing to experience more things, or would you live a better and more quality life if you were to second guess everything and shelter yourself up in the safe way? So which life would preserve life more?
I kind of feel like we should kind of specify the question a little bit, because like it's a little broad, I believe. Because I mean,
how dare you?
By preserving life, do you mean like one's own life, or do you mean
that's a good point.
like mankind in general, or like a species in general? Because I feel like I don't want to
welcome, y'all. Grab a seat. All right. And you want to join us? Please do.
Is that Uche?
This is Uche.
Yeah, Uche is here.
Yeah,
we already Kai's been here
since
the start.
The old president.
These are headphones?
Yeah, grab that headphones. Feel free to grab that chair. Grab a seat.
Is this the headphones for?
Yeah, that's the headphones for those. It's all kind of confused. I'm sorry. we're a professional radio show. Yeah, we got more Philosophy Club members rolling in. This crew is rolling deep today. But you were making a point about the is it a quality of life? You want more clarity on the question, I think.
Yeah.
Then we gotta make introductions.
So I think in the most basic sense, like preserving our own life, like our survival, I think a more suspicious life would be a better one. But in today's society, since it's much more complex, I feel like a more vulnerable life would be better. I think there's a balance. You need to have a balance between both, but I think you need to lean more towards vulnerability. That's where I stand.
I know people have been saying that as a species. I remember Uche making an argument.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, all right. Sorry, guys. Hi, I am the new president of the Philosophy Club.
Dude,
My name is
Uche,
Carabel.
you're the ex-president.
Shut up, bro.
This is Uche.
That's Uche.
Impersonating Kai.
Uche
is coming and begin to impersonate Kai.
Or Soy, I don't know.
Who's the real Kai? How does anyone at home know? We're both Kai.
Who looks more like a Kai?
Who looks more bet?
Kai? A key.
Well, you are Kai.
King Kai. My name's King Kai.
King Kai.
Okay,
Like
like
Kai.
Go ahead.
Okay. I remember us talking about, as a species, it is better for us. I mean, we would survive. We're probably we're promised longevity if we're suspicious as a species, but I know that almost every animal like that has ever existed has a this like that self-preservation in them, and they are suspicious because of their nature. And yet, even though they were suspicious, many of those animals that are suspicious are extinct. The dodo bird, I'm pretty sure, wasn't a vulnerable animal.
I think it was.
How was it vulnerable? It has its own suspicions.
That people would
Dinosaurs were suspicious creatures, and a meteor happened.
Well,
they didn't
that's
expect that.
understandable. But the
What
dodo
I'm saying-
bird is like,
what I'm saying is
people
that
went to the island and they like walked straight up to the people, and then everyone just killed the dodo bird.
They didn't kill. What?
Isn't that how they went extinct? Like people
Did they
would come
get
up to the
killed off,
island,
or they just died off?
People ate the dodo birds, right?
Are they killed off, or are there a few in the studio right now?
Dodo birds.
You dodos.
Yeah, so I think that might help clarify sort of the idea of what we mean by suspicion here. Again, I like that you're emphasizing the self-preservation instinct, because that's not anything you learn. It's something you're kind of born with.
Yeah.
And if you're born with the instinct to preserve yourself, then you could
say something.
But then you could argue that you are therefore inherently suspicious,
Correct.
or
correct.
cautious.
I think you are. But I don't think that. I think everybody have like. There's a balance. I think there exists a balance. You are inherently suspicious, and you probably even grow to be vulnerable, or maybe you are inherently vulnerable. I can't really make an argument that you are, but I can say it's. Probably somebody could. But what I'm saying is that the more you approach the vulnerable life, the better security your life is. Because like, think of it like this: at first, you're born, you love yourself, correct? Then you love your family. And your family, in that love, gives you security. Then you love, but then there's outside people. There's friends and there's acquaintances who aren't your friends and acquaintances yet. They're just other strangers, right? But when you form contracts with them, the greater security your life is. And the more you extend this circle of love and vulnerability, I think the greater security and welfare of your life is.
But
Like,
you're
you know what I'm saying?
you're saying that out here is friends and love and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
But there's more than just that, and you don't control
correct.
who you meet in life.
Yeah, you're right.
The people that you meet in life may not want to come at you with love. So when you come at them with love, they strike you,
Strike you, correct.
and then you grow scared of showing that love ever again.
That's what happened when I met Uche.
He
struck you? Uche, you struck him?
Hey, it was a weird day, man.
Like,
He
yeah,
walked up
okay.
to me,
I
came
need
from
to-
behind. It was weird, man.
All right. I think Kai has a valid point, but I feel like in today's society, there's a deterrent for people not to just strike people like in public. I feel like
I mean,
true.
I don't mean like legitimately, literally. I mean like figuratively, even.
Oh,
It
yeah,
means
yeah,
like,
yeah.
like
Get
you're not
advantage of
met with
someone.
reciprocal.
Exploiting
You're not.
somebody.
Yeah, you're not.
But I feel
reciprocated those
generally,
feelings of love.
I feel like
understand.
generally in society, like we're supposed to act in a certain way. We have moral and ethical standards that people like abide by, and I think like we don't have to walk around in fear that someone's gonna figuratively hit us in the face. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So,
But, I mean, like, imagine you've been growing up in this very non-competitive household, and you go into like a business, and you're
True,
trying to pursue a business, and in this business, self-centeredness is the nature of the game,
yeah.
and I'm going to use you if I can use you. I'm going to throw you out like a tool, basically.
Yeah.
Like, if you hit people like this, and you're going at them open-armed, like, invest all your money in this. We're going to make so much money. Like the Facebook thing, like the best friend got screwed out of the deal. He has, like, his name written on the bottom of the whatever, and gets, like, 0.00003% of the business. And Mark Zuckerberg has the whole thing. And he put his faith into his best friend. He went out on a limb for his best friend, and he ended up being shunned and like outed.
You're right.
in
But life
situations
as
like
a
that.
whole isn't a business. Life as a whole, like in instances, I know there are cases where people will just do that, but you got to think of like the whole of life, and I mean like people who are more suspicious, like I'm talking about that little circle of love I was talking about.
Sure.
Everybody has that, right? Even suspicious people.
Sure.
And when they like backstab other people, the less their people want to get out of that circle. Nobody wants to like be a part of like somebody's life if they have, if there's a risk of them being betrayed by that person as well.
Something I'm gonna say is something that I repeated a lot in the meeting yesterday. I said
Professor
that,
Manzi's great.
Yeah, I said that, and then I also said vulnerable animals go extinct.
Okay.
Right, and I think animals, regardless, go extinct.
Animals, regardless of
Whether
whether
you're
vulnerable
suspicious-
animals will go extinct faster than a suspicious animal.
Okay, you could say that.
Yeah, well, but applying it to humans, we're not necessarily
We are
animals.
animals.
We are
Well,
more
we
than
are
that. We
biologically
have a-
animals.
yes,
we fall
have-
under the Animalia kingdom, but animals don't. They don't have relationships. They don't do businesses. They don't do what we do.
All
Their
the
life
abstract
isn't.
things, but still, we're tied down to the world and all the world's problems with our physical body. And no matter how much we think, we're always going to be human and tied down to the earth, just as any other life being is.
But we
And
have two kinds of natures within humans. We have
don't
we have
think so.
we have the animal side, of course, which is like instinctual, that self-preservation
logical
law.
side.
But we have a logical side as well. We have progress. You know what I mean? We have technology and all these things. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
with that, we can we slowly realize that there's no reason to be as suspicious as we may think we
like,
should be.
Yeah,
Um,
like
I
I
don't think
mentioned,
so.
the
Speaking
deterrence,
of,
the law. We have social norms.
weren't those
that
all
we-
these things formed out of suspicion?
It was out of
they
it was
were
out of
formed-
to,
they were-
to secure life.
Yeah,
Because-
they're
Logically-
reformed.
So
yeah.
the way to secure life is to take suspicion in mind.
Okay, sure.
So suspicion will secure your life.
No, not really.
It
dude.
depends.
You just said
You
this-
But being vulnerable.
You said that suspicious animals are the ones that survive, and the
Vulnerable ones are the
vulnerable
ones.
ones die. But that's acting. Well, first of all, not emotionally vulnerable, but so they're wait. Some animals, like especially some of the larger animals, like a whale, right? It doesn't have much suspicion or fear.
Well, it
They
also
don't really show.
it's not really at the whim of other. It's not at the whim of other predators, really.
Sharks
That's
get
true,
on that
but
all
that,
the
that
time.
was
You
what
talking about?
kind of my point is. Essentially, they're afraid if a large shark comes near their young, and that's it. Really, it's a realistic fear, and I think humans in modern society, we don't really have an issue with. There aren't that many sharks coming to eat us. We don't have natural predators running around. Really,
I mean, we
Mhm.
do.
But I think that
Sexual
we've
predators.
I think that we've gotten to this point
a few.
through our suspicion.
Do sharks
Like-
eat thunder ducks?
Yes.
A tad bit.
A tadpole?
Okay, never mind. Don't ever hold the mic.
Let
we
go
take
of
his
the
mic away?
He's
Let it
gripping
go.
that mic so hard. I just wanted to ease on that.
But something I want to say is, like, if caveman time back then, if they were more vulnerable than suspicious, we would not have the liberty of deciding to be vulnerable right now.
They were
Like,
suspicious towards the forces of nature and other animals, but not towards each
you
other
think
as
that-
much. And if
well,
they
if
were,
the-
they wouldn't be able to form governments.
I think
societies,
that they were
cities.
suspicious
I
towards
mean,
each other.
yeah, they probably were,
suspicious-
but we evolved, and our intelligence evolved, and we've developed a society where we don't have to worry about those things as much. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
let me interject something here. It seems like what you guys are talking about relative to suspicion is the ability to perceive or anticipate threats. So what is it that you're suspicious of? You're suspicious of something that appears threatening to you. And I think to your point, Kai, as you and to yours as well, Uche, really, as you continue to live life, you become at least somewhat better than you were as a child at being able to perceive or anticipate threats. And so that ability to do that well, the ability to recognize a threat or recognize what's not a threat, I think that plays a large role in to what degree you are to remain suspicious or guarded. If you know that there are threats, but you're not good at identifying them, you're going to be suspicious all the time. You're going to be guarded all the time. At the same time, if you're really good at perceiving threats, then you know when you could be vulnerable. And you know when it's rational to be vulnerable and when it's irrational to be suspicious.
But there's nobody, but Manzi, there's nobody who doesn't think they know when or not to be suspicious. When they are suspicious,
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
when
there
they
are
are
some.
suspicious, it's just like they can justify why. So they're not gonna say, "Oh, I'm being suspicious. Why? Oh, for no good reason." No one's gonna say for no good reason. They're gonna come up with some
They're
reason.
gonna have some.
and
some
to them,
account
it's a
for it.
good reason.
Yeah, I think generally that is correct. Although I do think there are times when people are just like, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I don't
Yeah.
trust him.
Intuition. They
Yeah,
think
yeah,
probably
and then
they-
we'll say intuition. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fair. And again, what is intuition?
So
But-
I guess we all understand that there's a balance between the two. I kind of want to hear from everyone, where do you think it leans more towards to, like suspicious, being more suspicious, or being more vulnerable?
You mean
So-
naturally?
What do you think
I
would
mean-
preserve life?
I mean, what do you think? Because we all understand that it's a balance of
is
both.
necessary, yeah.
It's
A balance
of
is
both.
necessary.
But
Correct.
I'm the type of person that thinks that, like, in today's society, you need to be more vulnerable than suspicious. Of course, like every situation is different. And you gotta, like,
Case,
Weigh
I know,
everything on
yeah.
their own.
That
Yeah.
does make sense. It is case by case. in a lot of
So
scenarios.
I kind of want to hear, like, where do y'all lean? I know you lean more towards suspicion, and I'm sure you agree that, like, there's obviously a balance between the two. I kind of want to hear what everyone else thinks.
Okay, I don't want to go first. though.
Well, I am kind of curious.
He's trying to figure out.
Go first either, dude.
Uche, do you? What
Yeah.
happens to vulnerable animals? Did you have anything to say on that?
They go EXCINT.
Okay.
Extinct.
Well, I am curious as well to hear y'all's thoughts on this. What do you think? But yeah, Braden. So you couldn't really make it to the meeting. You caught the very tail end.
Yeah, the last 2 seconds.
Literally, just enough time to sign the sign.
Yeah, just padding your attendance.
Wait,
That's right.
what animal do you think that's extinct now that was too vulnerable? Like,
Probably
that was
the
not
dodo
suspicious
bird.
enough? How?
The
tell
probably
me.
the
Do
dodo
you
bird.
understand
The dodo
the nature
bird.
of the dodo bird? Because I don't.
I don't
Tell me,
understand
like,
that, but what I mean
why
by
did
a
it-
vulnerable animal is like an animal
I think
that
it just got okay.
is not wary enough of the threats that are around it. So, like, let's say that there's probably these animals died so early they were never named, but it's like something like let's say a deer walks around and it walks into like a lion, and the lion
It walks into
Just
a
like, hey,
lion.
what's up, lion?
The lion just sits there with his mouth open.
it walks. Let's say this is what I mean by a vulnerable animal. It's like an animal that
those levels.
or what we could say is like the animals that can't adapt to environmental changes. Like when people move into a society and some animals can't move out of the situation, or they stay where we are and then we just drive them out, or they just legit their numbers drop and plummet and then until they go extinct, because these animals they can't see the change that's going to come on to them.
Yeah, they can't
So, right.
anticipate.
from
they can't
other
adapt.
from other species, right? Other species are probably evolving better than them,
Yeah.
and are able to probably like use like their prey
Like
at that point.
squirrels right now, like they can adapt to us being around, but I'm sure that there are other animals that lived in this area before humans moved here and populated here.
Didn't we have
Yeah.
an episode on endangered species? Wasn't this a topic last
Probably.
season?
It
I
was.
think it was. Yeah.
It was.
So yeah.
And Uche, yeah, he came on here and he said, "It's their fault.
I mean,
It's their
That's right.
I don't even
fault."
remember that, honestly. We're gonna go
I do
check
remember
the
that.
receipts.
but
Okay.
but
Snap.
but as you know, so maybe putting aside for a second the whole idea of initial evolution and what have you, talking about contemporary times, which is what I think JC is getting at. Right now, in today's day and age, given everything, the tumult of politics and religions seemingly forced to reconcile with some dark truths and what have you, is it a good time to be vulnerable? The editor-in-chief of the Richland Chronicle just waved to me. You want to come on the show? Oh, no, she's walking away.
Could she hear you?
She can't.
Then why?
It's a bit for the radio guy. It's one of those things where
This is why Manzi was not discovered.
hey, I've been discovered, low-key discovered. I've been discovered by the Richland community.
Yeah,
That's
right.
all that matters
That's
to me.
right.
That's all that matters.
Unless you graduate.
I'll never graduate. And neither will you. That was a joke. I wish you the best. What I was saying was anchovies on pizza is probably the best topping. What was I talking about?
Say what you were saying.
Oh, right. The idea that
My God.
the idea that being a vulnerable, because JC, I like your inclination. You're inclined to be vulnerable, in such a way where you're not like ashamed of it. You think that's the smart move. That in terms of a quality of life. And to what extent do we agree with that? You okay?
I'm sure it can fit back in.
Jack has-
mechanical dysfunction.
Kai in no way is affiliated with the Philosophy Club radio show. any things that he's
I'm tired of this.
No, I'm joking.
I'm tired of this.
Go grab another one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there we are. Do you want to jump on there? You sure? You don't have to. You could just stand there.
All right, what were you saying, man?
The point being is this. Oh, we're out of time. You were listening to Kate. No. Why would somebody? And this came up at the meeting, and then we kind of drifted, and we didn't really address it. But why would somebody choose to be vulnerable in today's day and age? Like why? So JC, why do you think that's a wise call?
I feel like the most successful people are the ones that put themselves out there, and in today's life where we attribute worth in our life, we attribute it to success, and where we try to find meaning, we attribute it to success and other things, abstract ideas that don't necessarily relate to our biological beginnings. I mean, like, doesn't necessarily relate to our basic survival needs. We have there's this psychology. I forgot what it's called, but it's we learn it in psychology, and it's the
Maslow's
Maslow's,
hierarchy.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, psychology, poor man's philosophy. Keep going.
I feel like everyone, or at least here in
That's a
America,
big
I feel
diss.
like we're all privileged enough that we meet those basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to find meaning and value and
abstract
worth in other things. And I feel like that's where you need to apply vulnerability, to put yourself out there so you could experience those things and actually live a human life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't,
Well said.
yeah. So, I mean,
I see that, but at the same time, we're talking about a balance. So I don't want it to be like a person living a completely vulnerable life,
Yeah.
or a person living a completely suspicious life. That's what it sounds like. But if you're taking these things into balance, you put yourself out there, but you also recognize that bad things can happen, and that's all I'm asking for from people.
But
I'm not asking you to like.
But
where
I feel like the common denominator between the people that are successful and the people that are not is they put themselves out there. The people that aren't successful don't put themselves out there. Of course, the people that are successful also they're both vulnerable and suspicious, but you could tell that the ones that aren't successful don't put themselves out there. They don't put themselves in positions.
I see that, but I think that a person that is successful puts himself out there when they know that there's a reward to be sought. Like if they figure out that there is a reward to be gained from the situation, they won't put themselves out there in the unknown. Bill Gates won't just put an investment into a business that he's just heard of or something like that. He will research it. He'll understand whether this will negatively or positively affect him. So he'll weigh both sides of he'll weigh the positives and the negatives, how it could come back at him, how it could potentially threaten his living or his life, all the abstract things that he has, and then he'll move forward based off that. And that's what I'm saying when a person should be more suspicious. They should weigh the positives
that sounds
and
like
negatives.
just being informative.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Isn't it being cautious?
But yes, okay, no, that's not being cautious. That's just learning, being informed. My
being rational.
definition of suspicion, at least, is where it's like you're preparing for something that you don't know could happen.
Isn't that
Paranoia.
anything that happens in the
It
future?
all can lead to paranoia, huh?
Isn't that anything that can happen for the future? Like if I wear my seatbelt when I get into my car, I'm preparing for something that I
Yeah,
don't know
but
can
I'm not
happen.
saying pure. I'm saying pure suspicion. I get
talking
the,
about a
I get
balance,
the
though.
necessity. Oh, it's a balance. Sure,
So
understood.
I'm saying that leaning
Yes.
more towards suspicion will lead to a safer and longer life.
But
It's-
keep this in mind as well.
I would.
Oh, no,
I
go
might
for it,
live
Bryn.
longer if I never drove, but this is not necessarily going to lead to a better life.
It's a balance where you're being
Ah.
vulnerable while you get into your car, but you're being suspicious when you click it or take it.
I think it is. It is good to apply when to be suspicious and vulnerable appropriately. I do understand that, but I'm just saying, like, as a whole, in essence, in general, in
Yeah.
life, being more vulnerable than more suspicious is more beneficial.
What makes you think
Because
that?
because people will try to think that they try to prepare for the unknown, but you cannot prepare for what you don't know because it will
Like the-
whether you like it or not. As like I remember you were making an analogy of
Yeah.
just like being covering your face
Sure.
or being open and someone's going to give you a cake or someone could punch you. And if you were blocking your face, at least you'd be happy that it would be a good surprise if someone had open arms with cake. And you'd be like protected.
if
You'd
they
be
had tried to
secured
punch me,
if they
then-
tried to punch you. But the thing is that he said, "What if you get kicked in the crotch?"
It's a very
but you're
simplified
trying to
version
give
of
finite.
everything.
You're trying to give like that. You're implying that there is a finite
Let's
set
act
of
it out.
options
Of course
in
not.
life. It is infinite.
It is infinite.
Anything can happen.
Of course.
So it is useless and it is in
Yeah.
vain, in my opinion,
You might as
to
well not
make
even-
prepare for something
Do you
that
wear
you
your
don't
seatbelt
know.
when you go into your car?
Look, that's look.
He
man,
does
that's
not.
Finite. That's a finite, and I don't, and I don't.
Terrible. What I'm saying is, of course, there are finite outcomes there are infinite outcomes. So
Yes.
you can't prepare for absolutely everything,
Yes.
but you can prepare for what you know could happen.
Yes, and you could get in a car crash, which is the reason why I believe it is good to wear a seatbelt.
Okay,
But-
then what are you arguing against?
But there are other things that there's no point. It's in vain to be suspicious of.
Of course, like someone said when I posed the wearing your seatbelt thing, someone said like, what if you sit on your seat and then it explodes or something? And like, of course you can't.
Wait, I think
That was after the meeting, but it's like,
What
of
if
course you
there's a-
can't prepare
yeah,
for
there's a detonator in
all
your
the
seatbelt.
crazy variables.
Boom.
But for what you know could happen, like the things that are likely to happen,
Uh-huh.
you can prepare for these things,
But-
and that is the suspicion that you should apply.
I feel like you're being more vulnerable than suspicious by getting in the car and driving, and not just putting your seatbelt.
Well, you have to be vulnerable. That's where it's the balance.
That's
You
where
have
it's
to
the
be
balance.
vulnerable.
Yeah, that's true.
To
Make
make
a balance.
any movements in life. But at the same time, I feel like vulnerability should never be left alone. I feel like you should always have suspicion with it.
Let me put something
Yeah,
out there,
right.
guys, because here's what I think we're overlooking: just how painful it is when you put yourself out there and then you get totally burned. That kind of experience, I think I brought this up in the meeting. It's traumatic, and that kind of trauma can have a lasting impact on how you approach the world. You become more guarded,
true.
even in spite of yourself. You might say, I remember when I used to be vulnerable, but then I got hurt like that, and now I'm irrationally suspicious of everybody.
But that's why I think it's good to have these talks and be educated because
Definitely.
you realize that the world will burn you regardless of the situation. Whether you're suspicious or vulnerable, you will get burned.
You hear
But
that,
you have to-
audience? You
but
hear that,
have to-
listeners?
But you have to
The world will burn.
But I'm burning it. But I'm just saying, I guess it's good to, I don't know, maybe have a strong heart and understand that if you react in the same way, if you treat the world the way the world treated you, you become part of the problem which you didn't like which you
Yeah.
become the
I
thing
don't
that
think
you
that's
don't
what
like.
we're talking about though.
Hmm?
That's like the after effect of whether you're suspicious or vulnerable. That's
Yeah.
not really what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right. You're
I
right.
think,
You're right.
No, I think it's all
I mean,
related.
I just think what I'm talking about is like how it ties into what we're talking about is that
Yeah.
when people are vulnerable. I'm not trying to say that they've never been hurt and they have no reason to be vulnerable. I'm just saying that people who are truly vulnerable, they understand that there is an infinite amount of possibilities that could happen to them, and yes, they may have been hurt before, but they understand that shouldn't keep them from acting the way they act towards other people, because regardless of the situation, they will get burned again, just like they have been burned.
Unless you prepare for it.
Mm.
But you can't prepare. You can't prepare for all things.
You
Yeah.
can't prepare for all things.
And
you
is
can
but
prepare for
that's
things
why
that
it's
are likely
sure,
to
sure,
happen.
sure. I'm just saying.
If it's
And
gonna
a re-
rain, I'll
I'm
carry
su-
an umbrella.
But I'm
You
just
can
saying
wear your
suspicion.
seatbelt.
Suspicion. Yes, I wear your seatbelt, everybody. Please, we're not. Philosophy Club is not trying to say don't wear your seatbelt. Just wear your seatbelts. All right. I don't want to get sued. All right. But
Thank you for that disclaimer.
I don't wanna- but I'm just
Kai,
saying,
don't be
I'm
suspicious.
just
No one's
saying-
gonna sue you.
Hey,
You see that, man? Why did you make yourself vulnerable, man? Why'd you put that disclaimer out
I
there?
used it appropriately.
Nah,
See,
dog.
I use my suspicion appropriately.
Not toward car wrecks, but toward being sued for other people's car
Yeah.
wrecks.
Has he been sued before? Is that the
People
implication?
love suing. I'm just saying.
Well,
He's never been sued.
I've never been sued.
Good.
That's his attorney
Yeah.
in the back.
I was about.
He's currently being sued.
That's his PR bid.
She'll answer for him.
That's the piece.
Yeah, look. I think you guys are really nailing it. Hey, what's up, Kalen? With this idea of striking a balance, and I do think that the approach you take is going to be up to the individual, namely the circumstances that you are familiar with, the life experiences you've had. You will be taught how cautious to be by life if you're paying attention, and by that same token, sometimes it's right to throw caution to the wind. Sometimes, even when you feel like you should be suspicious, you remain vulnerable. You remain idealistic, perhaps, maybe even to the point of naivete. And then the question would be, well, why would one do that? And I think it kind of goes back to sort of what JC was saying, this idea that your quality of life is going to be better if you put yourself out there and take risks with regard to what you care about and who you care about.
I think it's possible. I also think the exact opposite is very possible, just as likely. Like there's
Kai, see him out.
there's a person in the meeting yesterday who used an analogy using poker chips.
He's
So
very smart. I like
the
it. What's his
analogy,
name?
I don't know what his name was,
I like
but
it.
the analogy was
Stay down there.
to imagine that there are two people. One person's
Okay.
the suspicious person, one person's the vulnerable person, and they all get an equal amount of poker chips. So the vulnerable person will spend money on every bet he can make, and he'll spend all this money, and it's possible that he hits the lottery, gets rich off of it, but it's possible that he spends all his money, gets broke out of it, and he can't return from the pit that he's buried himself in. And the suspicious person would be a person who it's not that he doesn't bet any money, but he bets money where he knows, or at least where it's 99.999% sure that he will make money off of the bet.
Okay.
So the suspicious person won't make like a million, but he will make money in a consistent pattern
Yeah.
where the vulnerable person can either make a crap ton of money or lose
Okay,
all of
okay.
his money.
This is where I disagree with that analogy. If you play conservative, if you play suspicious, you won't make money. You will gradually lose money. If you've ever played poker, you will get
I've never played
bluffed.
poker.
You
would
could
get
gradually
bluffed.
lose money too.
No, you will gradually lose money
you will
if you
definitely
play suspicious.
gradually lose money playing
So-
All
suspicious.
right, we're not talking about the actual rules of poker. We're
Philosophy
talking about
Club Poker Tournament this
but
Friday.
you would
We're gonna
get-
do the
you-
po-
but you would get bluffed if you play poker and you play suspiciously. You would get bluffed, and you would for sure lose. But if you play vulnerably, you will probably lose, but you will
it's
probably
a
win.
balance. You don't want to play.
Don't
either
test
way.
JC in
And-
poker.
and,
We're
and,
going
and
from
regardless,
extreme to
it's
extreme.
unknown.
Your
It's
world
fascinating.
will burn.
Why would you- You're a pyromaniac. I'm gonna have to
But yeah,
find
the
a new
hazard.
analogy
Yeah.
takes in both extremes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you're either really suspicious or really vulnerable. If you play conservative in poker, you will lose for sure. You will.
Okay,
lose.
what if there was a balanced player, but what do you think would be better if he would play more suspicious, slightly more suspicious, or slightly more vulnerable?
That's,
Well, in the-
that's the thing about that analogy. It's not that simple. It's really really complicated.
JC's like, I'm not
Because
going to
of the
tell you how I
rules of
play.
poker, yeah, it's complicated.
Man.
It's not even a game of like your cards. It's a game of it's a mental game
Yeah.
between you and your opponent. So it's way more
And
complicated.
life is a
than
game
just-
of chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So instead of these
Sure.
analogies, let's talk more realistically. I mean,
Sure.
We can talk about like making investments and whatnot.
Or you can
Hey,
talk.
who's
Or
this
no, you can
kid
talk
that's
about
just,
things
waving
like.
at me. You think we should invite him in?
No.
Orange T-shirt. Spooky season is in. Let's go.
Okay, but what are you about to say?
Well, something like telling somebody you love that person, or doing some grand gesture for somebody. Where you're putting yourself out there in a way where you're saying, "I really care about this thing," or "I really care about this person." Is it wise then to be suspicious? Be like, well, I don't know if that person feels the same way towards me, or I don't know if
I mean, I
if
can
this
tell
company's
you-
going to take care of me in the ways that I'm willing to put myself out for it. Like this is what I think of when I think of the vulnerable versus the suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
It's less about playing games and what have you. It's more about again the life you lead.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, how's it going? Welcome. This is the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, and we are easily distracted. That's the approach. Is now on the one hand, you shouldn't go all in every single time you maybe I don't know
Could you
meet
imagine
somebody.
You meet this person like 3 seconds later, you're telling me.
I love you.
Exactly.
Uche.
He's subtle. He's like, what
I
is
love
it?
you.
Uche. I love you, Uche.
Wait, have y'all seen
I
How I
love
Met
you,
Your Mother?
Uche.
How I Met Your Mother?
How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ted Mosby. If anyone gets that. No, you don't get it.
Yeah,
Ted
the,
Mosby.
the other person
Pull
would
a
then
Ted
be
Mosby.
suspicious, I imagine.
Yeah.
With
I
good
think
reason.
being radical in both would be, pretty
terrible.
Be terrible. I do agree. Probably suspicion. You'd be detached. Being too vulnerable. You naive.
But we do have our default modes. What is?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what's your default?
I know
mode?
my default.
My
mode.
default mode
It's more suspicious.
is more suspicious.
That's why he struck me.
It's more suspicious, but I
But you
want
get
to
the
be
job
more
done.
vulnerable. It's I feel like it's better to put yourself out there more.
I think, yeah. I mean, I do think you like in life, human nature. You have these, embodied settings. Like embodied applications.
wanna
Imagine
get
we
a
were an iPhone. We have these, already set applications. One of them is suspicion. We are suspicious by nature. I do get that, but at the same time, if we don't learn to be vulnerable, it's not just the time we have on Earth that could be like reduced, but the quality of life could be reduced if not vulnerable. If we're a suspicion, with the quality of life can also be reduced.
I agree.
Or it could be
I think
preserved.
That the way I carry myself into situations like this, whether it's I'm always like, it's too good to be true until I'm sure of it. So it's like if I'm going to a job or if I'm talking to a girl or whatever, it's like,
A girl or whatever. What else would
Oh.
you be
no,
talking to? What else are you talking to?
No,
Or whatever.
Let us
Guys,
settle
a
down.
tree.
guys.
He's talking to a tree.
The first lady of the
He's like
Philosophy Club wants to say
coming
something.
on to the
but
trees.
So,
Go ahead,
whether it's a
Sabrina.
job or do you actually want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Well,
thank you for just cutting me off. I appreciate
Everybody.
it. Thank you for just not even
First
letting
lady
me.
has
don't look at me.
benefits. Okay, go ahead. Fine. We're gonna look. Go.
You act like you're not on camera.
I feel like whenever you're starting to meet somebody, of course you're gonna
Yep,
be
be
suspicious because you don't know where they're coming from, or how their family is, or what type of tendency. Kai, what
Why
are
you
you
don't
doing?
hold the mic.
On a scale
What
of
type
9
of
to 10.
tendencies they have.
Uh huh.
But I feel like whenever you get to know the person, you start to trust them.
So you're suspicious until you're sure.
How suspicious were you of Kai?
Yes. I was suspicious because I was hurt by my past experiences. But once I got to know him, I was vulnerable. But of course, you have to be a little suspicious because you don't know. People make mistakes. You don't know if you're going to get hurt or not.
Right.
But
No, listen, let me tell you right now. You will get hurt. I'm gonna hurt you.
regardless
I'm
of
gonna
the
hurt you, and you're gonna hurt me.
situation. Yes, I
Right.
know. I'm aware of that.
Okay.
That's why I have a little bit of suspicion, but I'm vulnerable.
Kai is currently being held in Dallas
Was
County.
that a threat?
Two movements.
I feel like you're vulnerable to the people you love because I feel like
threats.
But you have to be suspicious in gaining that love until you decide to make yourself vulnerable.
that's what I said at the
Yeah, I
beginning.
know.
Okay.
I was
and-
just reiterating.
Yeah, but
So-
look, but
yeah.
think about it like this: the quality of our relationship has always been like going down on the roller coaster every time you
Well,
have
Jesus
suspected
Christ,
me.
Kai, what
Listen,
the hell your problem?
Why are we talking about a relationship?
listen, this relationship can apply also in life.
Open up,
Our
open up, Kai.
relationship applies to all the relationships
Okay,
we
go
will
ahead.
have with our kith, with our anybody,
Kith?
our kin. Kin and kith, if you know what that means. You're uneducated. Kith means friends, acquaintances, and others. He's uneducated. Why is
You
he
have a
here?
lisp.
Why is he?
It's like the morning dew.
Oh my god. No, listen, dude. Okay, the point is, the quality of our relationship has always been, declining every time she has suspected me of doing something with somebody else. Every time she has had her doubts and her suspicions, it has,
I've have felt like a fool.
you feel like you really do.
All right,
Yeah.
this is a come on.
really
Let's
No,
keep
this
it
is
real.
And every time
informative.
she's vulnerable with me, the longer we are, and the more time we enjoy with each other, and the better the quality of the relationship becomes.
Yes, because one's vulnerability is a gift you give to other people.
Yes, it is, and it is an honored gift at that as well.
Yeah.
And if it's a relationship as intimate as ours, it's reciprocated. You know what I'm saying? And not just like us intimate. I'm talking about like friends too. Like if you're friends with somebody, like if we like nobody.
If you show them pieces that you wouldn't show to other people, if
Yes.
you make yourself vulnerable, you say these intimate things with these people,
Uh-huh.
then of course. But at
And
first,
at
you
the
have
risk
to make
of being
sure that
betrayed, at the risk of being betrayed.
But what I'm saying is, how I would advise people to approach the situation is be sure of who you're telling these things to.
Oh, okay.
Approach the situation with suspicion at first, and then when you're sure of that, then you can be vulnerable. When you establish this relationship, because of course vulnerability is what builds relationships.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why you get to know someone before you decide that they're going to be your boyfriend.
But isn't that the other way around?
But it also sucks if someone who gains a reputation
No.
of doing bad things is never trusted ever in their whole life. Like there will never be a reason.
Yeah.
No one will
That's a good
ever
point.
trust them, and they'll
But I'm
they'll
saying
be left.
You still make
to
yourself
increase
vulnerable
in
by
being
getting to know them, but you
Uh-huh.
still approach the situation with suspicion because you know what their reputation has been.
Right. But I'm saying they defeat each other. Suspicion can defeat vulnerability just as quickly as vulnerability can defeat suspicion.
mean?
Like if I'm let's say I have a reputation of sleeping around with everyone, and all of a sudden a good girl in my life comes into my life and she
me?
accepts me. Hey,
You're not helping your case
It's
here.
called Sabrina. Her name is Sabrina.
Okay.
She comes, but I these things. But she doesn't accept. She accepts. I guess she would accept the things that I've done, but she says that's in the past. Let's move on.
People make mistakes.
Things
Okay.
like that. You know what I'm saying?
Forgiveness.
I feel great. Honestly, I just feel like my soul's uplifted, and then when someone I feel like trusts me regardless of my past, when they know it, it's not like they're being naive
That's
and
what
they're
I'm
it's
saying,
like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But if someone knows who you are and they still are vulnerable to you, maybe it sounds even more foolish to trust them, but at the same time, it's more, I don't know, it's more warm-hearting, I guess, to the other
I don't
person. The
get
other
what you
person
mean.
can become,
Yeah, I think that's really well said.
you know what I'm saying?
I don't get what you mean, kind of. So
Okay.
say that this person has a bad reputation.
Right.
Here's my advice would be.
Yeah.
Like if I had a daughter and she was like trying to go after a guy that had a terrible reputation.
Who, me?
Okay, but still, if I had a daughter and she's trying to go after a guy that had a terrible reputation, but she saw that there's something worth it, that maybe he wasn't all the bad reputation. So you can make yourself vulnerable in pursuing this relationship because you know that you might get hurt, but do not pursue it and expect the world from the guy. Don't
I get that.
Don't be 100% over here.
I get
I would say
that.
be more suspicious because you know the track record. You know what has been done. So don't let this guy make you too happy. Don't let this guy build you up too much. Don't let him. Don't derive so much of your happiness from him in the beginning until you know that he is who he says he is.
Did you
Or
hear
he's
that,
not who
Jennifer?
you think he
Yeah,
is.
but at the same
Uche's
time,
daughter.
This brings up an interesting point.
I think what you're saying is that despite you being vulnerable, you initially still are suspicious, and you should.
I think
like,
you should
approach
be
it.
sus-
Yeah,
you should
approach it
with
with suspicion.
I
Yeah.
do get that.
This brings up an interesting point. Like, does your calculus or your calculation of whether to be your decision to be more vulnerable or more suspicious change depending on whether you are taking actions on your own behalf or on behalf of someone else? You
Do they
what
change?
about
I think it
if
depends on
you're
how much
in
you
a
care
family
about.
situation, or what about extending it even more to a city, a country that you're leading? Does that a class, right?
Yeah.
Would that change your kind of initial evaluation of being more vulnerable or more suspicious on an individual level? Would you act differently if you were in a leadership or
Oh, that's
other
interesting.
responsible
That's a good question.
position?
Good question, Professor Manzi.
I think if it's a leader, I think the safer route is better.
Yeah,
I think the more
because
suspicious
he's
route
more.
is
Yeah,
better.
I understand that because he's more.
There's more at
He has
cost.
more. He has more.
to
Exactly.
lose.
More to lose. Exactly. I get that. That I get.
I don't think
And
that
he will be probably blamed for if there's like maltreatment. Just like he's not, if he wasn't prepared for the position that he's in. I get that. He has to be a little more suspicious. There's no argument. I don't see any argument.
Well, I mean, what about when you're in a position of power already? Should you approach your leadership?
But before anyone is given power, they're human nonetheless. And the common denominator between any position that anybody ever has is still, like any rank, regardless, is that you still bleed red. You're still human, regardless. And whether the quality of your life is better off being of your life.
I don't think it's
everybody's worried about taking care.
That you're worried
That's what I'm saying. You're not take out the part that you are in a position of power. I mean, it's just like you're still human nonetheless. You know what I mean? And we don't have to depend upon someone else for the quality of our life to be greatly secured. We can secure our own. We should be able to secure our own lives. See what I'm saying? Because if I depend on somebody else, then yes, the more
we heavily depend
the
on
government. That's where we
and
get our
look
water
how our
and
suspicions.
electricity
But look how
you depend on the government
look
to
how
stop
their
Uche
suspicions
from
do a lot
walking
of-
up and
Oh my
striking you.
God.
Guys, hey guys,
Uh-huh.
somebody wants to speak.
You got it. Could you introduce yourself first?
Please.
Okay, hi, I'm Mimi.
Mimi? Are you serious?
Yeah,
Your mother?
I call my mother Mimi.
everybody calls her mother Mimi. I just wanted to say that human beings are imperfect and we all make mistakes, and it's unfair to judge people when you first meet them based off what they have done, because you have done bad stuff yourself too. All of us have done bad stuff, and our actions do not determine who we are. I may have done bad stuff in my past, but that does not make me a bad person right now. So when you meet someone new, for you to approach them and have suspicions because of what you heard I just think it's unfair. I mean, of course you need to be open, because that is in human nature. We are suspicious as a self-defensive mechanism, I guess we can call it. But you can't
just show yourself up.
Yeah, you can't you can't judge people when you first meet them just because of what you heard. How they were with other people is not necessarily how they're going to be with you, Yeah.
What I got from
People
that,
get confused between intuition and their suspicions. That's really based off rumors and reputation. They get that confused with I just don't think that's a good person. When they know that they've heard prior things about that person that they're holding their suspicions against, they're gonna say that, I don't know, I just don't feel like I'm gonna get to like that person, when probably they heard a story before about how much that person did someone else wrong. It's not right,
And I
basically, yeah, what I got from her is being vulnerable is being empathetic. Like you have more empathy towards people, and I think being suspicious, you're more speculative towards people.
I can see that, but I think that being empathetic, because she did start her sentence with saying human beings are not perfect, and if you're being empathetic with an imperfect being. You're not being empathetic with the good sides of a person. You're being empathetic with the good and the bad of a person.
Correct.
So it's not just I understand that you should be open with these things, but at the same time, even if I were the person that had the bad reputation, or if I were the person that had the good reputation, I would still advise the other person to look at me objectively, see the good and bad in me, and then decide afterwards if they do want to pursue it. I wouldn't just say that you should go open without any suspicion, because negatives can come from that. Because what if the reputation is legitimate, and you open yourself up to the person, and then they just hurt you, and then now you're traumatized, and you're too tender to be touched by anybody else. It can have a terrible effect on you, or you could be absolutely wrong, and that could have a great effect on you. So I think that I don't think that going into it with suspicion is a bad thing.
I agree
I
with
just
you.
think that it should be balanced. It shouldn't be I'm so suspicious I'll just never trust you.
Yeah,
But it should
it's
be
like
I'm suspicious at first until you prove me otherwise, and it's not going to be fair because it's not going to be fair because the reputation is already kind of tainted the image. It's not like you're walking into it with a blank slate.
You're walking into fresh new waters, a fresh new person.
Fresh new. It can be a fresh new person, but it can't be the same person.
Okay. If it's the same person, you can't expect a different outcome.
But you
if it's a
don't know
different
is what I'm
person,
saying.
you can expect. I'm saying, well, you exactly. So which means that it's even that much more ridiculous because it's just suspicion. What I'm saying, it's just basing everything on the unknown, the imaginary.
I think it's on evidence.
Evidence?
Yeah.
Evidence of
So
okay.
if the guy has
It
a
would
bad
make more
reputation,
sense
then
if
it's
someone
off
is
of that.
suspicious of their ex. Like say I dated this one girl, she cheated on me, I got back with her. Then I understand the suspicion because I'm with the same person and I'm expecting a different
But
result.
what if you see the
that's
same
almost
qualities
that's
in
almost
the person?
foolish.
What if you see the same qualities in the person? That doesn't have to be the same person.
Qualities?
But the same characteristics.
Yeah.
Similar person.
Okay, fine then. But even if it's the same characteristics, you have to understand that they have a different condition. Their lives.
It's
their-
a new
the condition
person,
of their
but
life
you
is
can
different.
you can still see what's happening, and though the face may be different, the actions are the same. Like, you can go ahead.
The problem with suspicion is that we tend to build our walls so high
That no one can get in.
that exactly we don't allow people to, we don't give them the chance to understand, and we don't allow ourselves to get to know them. And if you're like, oh, this person did ABC with 1, 2, 3, they're such a horrible person, you know, they're such a
Damn, with
horrible
1, 2,
person, I
3?
can't let them.
I did it with 2, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3.
But yes, I mean, of course, we always need to be aware of the people we speak with and the people we associate ourselves with, and we can't get into a relationship and put ourselves on the table because, like you said, we don't know the person and we don't know what they will do with that information about you, you know? So you can't put everything out there, but for you to be so suspicious that overpowers the other stuff, because, you know, when you already have something in your mind, even if they're proving you wrong, you're still going to come up with reasons to justify everything else that they did before, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, but I think that suspicion, if you're talking about suspicion versus vulnerability, I think more people will just gravitate towards vulnerability because it's a nicer sounding word. But I think that, like, legitimately, like, I think that if you say I'm a suspicious person versus I'm a vulnerable person, it's true. Like, it
I like
sounds
that
like
word.
snake.
Suspicion.
Nah, bro, it sounds
I
like
like
snake.
that word.
But what I'm saying is, like, as much as it's bad to have your walls too high, having your walls too low leaves you vulnerable to absolutely everything. You're at the whim of the world, and the world is not always going to be lovey-dovey with you. It can take you, use you as you want. So I'm saying, this is like what I said earlier. This is what I would advise my children to do. I would advise them to approach the situation with suspicion because of the reputation, but also be vulnerable in that getting to know the person and just putting yourself out there. That is your vulnerability. But do not just open yourself up with your heart on your sleeve because you don't know the person at that point. You should still have your suspicion. You should still have your guard up just in case you get blindsided out of nowhere. You're not left traumatized.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. In terms of relationships, I think you need to approach it suspiciously first and then vulnerably.
I'd say with business also.
With
like
business?
If it's a job or something, like if you go into a job interview and they're promising you all these things, you're like, this is the best place ever. I just want to sign up right now. The next thing you know, you're like in a contract that has you like 6 months and you get paid half of it. Stuff like it can be crappy. So I'd say,
I mean, if you know enough about business, then you know those are scams. You won't necessarily have to be suspicious. You'll just know it. But like if you I guess it comes down to knowledge. I think you have to know.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want people to think that being vulnerable means you're ignorant or naive.
Yeah.
At all. I want people to understand that there is awareness in vulnerability and there's also awareness in suspicion. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. I really don't know what the element is that makes people act one way or the other. But it's not awareness because awareness exists within vulnerability and suspicion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Members of the club will come and just continue the conversation.
All right, guys, it's 2:00. Wrap it up.
Why don't you wrap it up?
All right, y'all.
Wrap your burrito up.
You better kick.
I'd be well, before I get into the disclaimer, any plugs? Any plugs you want to do?
What do
any
you mean plugs?
Any final thoughts?
Plugs.
Any-
Oh no,
Hair plugs.
Like
Sure. I'm gonna plug the Richland College. No, the debate club.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a nice plug.
You know,
Shout out
that's all.
Brian Miranda.
oh, he's not here anymore, is he?
No,
In
he's
spirit.
still here.
Oh, really?
He's-
Good.
Yeah, he's coming to the meetings, and he is he's the president of the Richland College Debate Club.
Cool.
They're
have a debate
having
club?
the first meeting is tomorrow. Yeah.
Can I come?
Well, from 1 to 2 p.m. In EO32. Everyone is welcome.
EO32. Is there any other meetings? Like any other?
Just
that's
gonna be
the only day.
Weekly on Thursday.
Okay. Shout out to Psychology Club. I have this
Yes.
really nice
Psych
professor.
Psych Ducks.
Psych Ducks, what they're called?
Psych
Really,
Ducks.
Psy Ducks? Really cool, really cool. But I want to shout out to them. I want to give them a shout out, and I want to shout out specifically the advisor, Professor Jones. She's really nice. I'd have her Tuesdays and Thursdays, in, I don't know, in Neches. I think that's what it's called.
I
But
still
the
don't know.
meetings, it's from I don't know when p.m. to I don't know when p.m. I will find out.
It's
Bro,
the
are you
hour
sure
after
it's
this,
then, or is it
actually.
I don't
It's
know
the-
when
it's the-
exactly?
It's the hour after this.
I don't know.
It's actually it's starting right now. It's
Are
gonna
you
head over there.
serious? Oh, I
yeah.
have class. Forget it, man. I mean,
I know.
I got
I
lab.
hate it.
I
I
want
hate
to.
my
I want to be
schedule.
able. I want to collab with them someday.
We
And
should.
I want, hey, Manzi, I want you to talk to Miss Jones.
I will. I'll talk to Jennifer.
She's
Okay.
first name basis. Is that what y'all can do?
Oh, we're colleagues. That's all right.
But she told she told me to call her Jennifer, and I was like, I don't know about that, Chief. Like, I don't know.
She called the chief.
Most of her class calls her Jenny.
Really?
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know
I
that.
think.
She's so cool.
I don't know her very well, but I've heard awesome things about
I've
her.
heard people call you Jeff too, Mr. Manzi.
Yeah, that is. If you hear somebody calling me Jeff, I want you to promptly beat them.
Jay.
I've never
I'm
called him
joking.
Oh, I
Oh
heard
my
you.
God.
I heard you.
I call him Manzi.
I am out. I gotta go, guys.
Mr.
All right.
Professor.
Well, yeah. Let me make a couple plugs real quick too before we'll just wrap up in general. All of this is Philosophy Club related. So, Philosophy Club will be meeting 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, every Tuesday in EO32. Topic is up to the students. It's student decided, student generated. This radio show will air all semester from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Live broadcast at richlandstudentmedia.com. And will be uploaded to YouTube and become part of the Philosophy Club Radio Hour Season 5 playlist. Here are some other things worth checking up on. On the 27th of September is Fresh Check Day. Fresh Check Day is put on by the student support services and like the guidance center, that kind of thing. And it's to alleviate the negative stigma of mental illness. So there are going to be a few different booths set up. The Philosophy Club has one of the 5 booths. We did this the last couple of years, or we did this last year. We're going to do it again. It's called the Stop and Chill booth. So the purpose is to come to the Philosophy Club booth and literally stop and chill. So we'll have things to help you stop and chill, like bean bags, if Uche lets us use bean bags, as well as games and music and lava lamps and all that fun stuff. It's happening on the 27th of September.
Groovy.
Also, I am offering a phenomenology workshop series through the Learning Connections workshops in the Learning Center, Medina. Once a month, I will host a phenomenology experience
What's
where
that phenomenology?
Yeah.
you pay close attention. I'll try to say this quickly. You'll pay close attention to what it is you're experiencing and how you experience when you experience. So over the summer, I did one called Phenomenology of Listening.
Write that down. I forgot what.
Phenomenology of listening was I gave you different things to listen to, and after you would listen to it, you would kind of analyze what it was that you experienced in the act of listening.
Okay.
Is listening different from hearing? You know, when you listen to words, is it different as an experience than when you listen to music? I'm going to do that with all the 5 senses. Phenomenology of feeling, phenomenology of tasting, and it's an interactive kind of thing. It's not like a class. It's fun. Believe me, I swear it's fun. Unlike my class, which is very boring. That's not true. Also, the Philosophy in Film series, the PHILM, the film series is returning. Our first showing will be on October 3rd, and it's in collaboration with the International Film Series as part of the Multicultural Center here at Richland. We're showing Wild Strawberries, not rated. It's a drama. I think it's Swedish in origin. It's by Ingmar Bergman. It's about nostalgia. It's about a philosophy professor who is old and almost retired, and he's driving to accept an award, and but he's kind of like at the end of his life. He's sort of suspicious, and he meets these young students, and they're more, I guess we might say, vulnerable. They're more outgoing, and he kind of relives his life through them. It's a really interesting movie.
Is it autobiographical?
No, not yet anyway. But yeah, so that's going to be fun. There'll be snacks. That's going to start at what time is it here? 4 o'clock in room C249.
What day?
That's Wednesday,
Something?
October 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on October 23rd and 24th, we're having some guest speakers come in. They call themselves the Shapeshifters. I'm not joking. Shapeshifters. Shapeshift. I couldn't even say it.
Wait, shakes shifters?
Shapeshifters.
Wait, what is happening? Who
Spell
are
it.
these people?
They're coming.
Milkshakers.
Milkshaker.
SHAPE space SHIFTERS.
What are these
They're
people
shifting
do?
shapes.
Exactly. What do you think? Shapeshift.
Shapeshifters.
But what did they
They
shape
transform into
themselves?
animals. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Here's what they do. Here's what they do.
Listen.
They will be hanging out with the Philosophy
What
Club.
do they
They'll be coming to the radio show. They will be changing shape. No, they're going.
Changing configuration.
You know what they'll be changing? Lives, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to give a lecture on what science and humanities have to do with each other and why we need to integrate them rather than keep them separate. So you could be taking a science class and it could speak to you in a way that a humanities class does, and vice versa. And so they sort of bolster each other. They're mutually reinforcing. What is going on out there? Who's that guy?
Oh, that's Mr. Gabe. He's
Best friend.
best friend.
Anyways, so
Are we all bailing on?
so those are some things to think about over the next couple of weeks. We got even more in the holster here, but I won't go through everything. But yeah, so keep on the lookout for the film series. Keep on the lookout for the shapeshifters. You won't know them if you see them. And keep on the lookout for the other thing I said. Yes, the Fresh
Shout
Check
out
Day.
Male Achievement Program and shout out Gabe, the advisor. For the
Yeah, definitely. Shout out Gabe and shout out the MAP mascot, which I guess is you, Uche.
Yeah, I know, right?
Any suggestions on
Like
next
your
week's
face?
topic?
Yeah, it's his face.
Oh my god, I knew I recognized that face.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Any kill him. Any ideas for next week's topic? Any suggestions, or you want to kind of?
Privacy, that seems like a
Oh,
good
yeah,
everything.
privacy, that's
That
right.
was-
I
we
forgot
could
about
put
that.
a question to go
It
with.
did come up. I think we still need to have just one more meeting, at least what it should be about.
Yeah, that sounds good to me
And
too.
then after that, we're gonna make sure that the students pick their own topics. We need to make sure about that because
I like
they
that.
didn't get to pitch in any ideas last time.
Yeah. That sounds good. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it. You are listening to KDOX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland. Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated. Do not reflect the opinion of KDOX Web Radio, Richland College, Jack Fletcher, or the DCCCD. All that's left to do, folks,
Quack it out.
is quack it out. I love it. Is think about
Ponder a
it.
little. What?